I recently posted an overview of Sid Sackson's Berried Treasure from Restoration Games. Greatly enjoyed the gameplay with 3 and 4 players. I have subsequently played with 5 players, found it equally enjoyable. You are fighting for pies, and you score only if you have a lot of pies relative to other players, and you don't tie people. You need to have a clear standing of first, second, and third in order to score points. So you're trying to engineer ties among other players and stand free of such entanglements and ideally score lots of points. I'm not a fan of the 2-player setup because strangely there's like a lack of competition between 2 players given the card setup and how you're taking cards. Okay. One other comment was that the components relative to the size of the box, well, there's a lot of room in this box. And I understand why publishers do this because when this game comes, there is a sheet of cardboard the size of the box that has all the tokens on it, and you punch out the tokens. Okay, and now there's lots of space left. You might say, well, why don't you come in a box half that size or a box even smaller and just have the tokens punched out already? Well, you don't really save much by having a box half this size. That is not where the expense of the game really comes in. And of course, if you have the tokens already punched out, then you have to pay, the publisher pays for someone to somehow punch out those tokens, whether it's mechanical. I don't think someone would actually be sitting around punching out tokens at the manufacturer. I don't know how that works, but the cost is going in there somewhere. And of course, then you have a very tiny package with less shelf space. Okay, you want to get a game sold, so you want an image that is going to attract people to the game. And most people, I would argue, don't have an issue with there being lots of space in here. That's just me saying that without statistics to back it up. But I think most people in general, whatever, it doesn't matter. But some people do want a smaller package. And if you do, well, I'll show you how I plan to cut this down because these tokens would really fit on top of the deck. It's hard to do this doing vertically, and I think you could make a package roughly this size that would hold everything. You then have to fold up the rule book or cut it down or do something in order to fit it in here, but I think it can be done. If you're going to cut a box to a smaller size, you need to figure out what size you might need. So you're going to look at the components inside. Maybe a first step, let's see this, is to take out the insert because you don't need that. Right? That was another cost from the publisher, but if you're going to make things smaller, you possibly don't need that. Or maybe you'll end up using it later for insulation and say, yes, all of these things could be piled up in a single space here. This would all fit. The rules would not. The rules are slightly bigger than the cards. If you fold the rules in half, that is also bigger. So in theory, you could have a bigger package that fits the rules squarely and gives you a little more wiggle room, or you could go for something as tight as possible and fit that down. Possibly that would all fit. Possibly. And that's where you get in trouble because I have cut down things in the past. I did Notre Dame, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe? It's a long time ago. And cut it box slightly too short. Okay. So, could fit like that. Let's give that a try and see. So, it's easier, of course, if you're only cutting one way. If you're going to cut across here, well, then you only have one flap to make as you're folding up the box. If you're going to do 2, well, then you're going to have a more involved process. In fact, I have not done one along this line. Typically what I've done is if I can save more than 50% of the space by cutting this way, possibly I'm going to shorten a box as well, depending on what's inside. Those old queen boxes that were very cubic, well, those were a good prime candidate there. So we get tokens out of the way right now. Figure out what I need for this. The rules folded down will fit sort of on top. The rules are a bit longer than the cards. You don't want to go too short, so I'm going to give myself some wiggle room here. need as much here. So, other considerations. Do I want to save any of this back of the box stuff? Does that matter? Because if I'm cutting it down to this size, yeah, none of that is very attractive. And also, maybe it just doesn't matter because this doesn't need to be sold again, right? It's not going to another home. It's not on the shelf to entice someone to buy it. So maybe it doesn't matter as long as I have something on the top that I think works. All right, we'll work under that assumption. Let's go with the logos because then it's at least sort of works. All right, so put the cards in here. Figure. Just make a mark. We'll expand on that later. I'm gonna mark here for where this goes. I made initial cuts to have the edges here, have this strong corner. Now I got these flaps on the side. I could just take off the flaps and then build sides here, right? Cut across here and then attach those on the side. Or an alternative way is to build flaps out and then fold them up. So you maintain that integrity across there, although possibly making it janky looking as well. So I am not an expert in doing this. I do it because I enjoy doing it and just seeing what the craft looks like when it's done. So first I'm going to try to build flaps across here because I can always go back and use these later if I don't like the way this looks. So to build the flaps, you see what the height is. You're going to measure out that distance here and then cut along and make those flaps. Someone had recommended using a fork or a spoon or knife just to press down on this and crease an edge that way, which I have not tried before. So previously I would just cut along the back here and then fold down, but people are saying, and then you have to tape over the edge because you've broken the seal and then want to seal it up again to make sure it doesn't tear further. So we'll try it this way, making an impression along the line and then folding up. Trying to force a crease in there so it doesn't want to open up continually. If you look at the edges that I folded up, you see that one of them is nice and smooth. It definitely just folded over easily. There was no breaking. I didn't have to cut along the line in order to make that crease. This side did not work out as nicely, where there's some tearing along there. So perhaps I just needed to push down further on the other side and make that indentation and make the fold happen more easily. But in any case, that technique worked well. You can see the size of the original box compared to what this is going to be. Much, much smaller. It can fit. Cards, components, rules. Okay. Now I have to figure out how I want to do the lid. Probably, if I'm going to keep this, if I keep this corner up here, I get the little grabby paws in the raccoon with barely any of the logo. If I do here, it's going to get some of the logo. Yeah, this is going to be the best look, I think. Now, I've seen other people where they take the cover off completely. I mean, in theory, you can unwrap, take the paper off, right? Start to unfold it. You could possibly steam it. I'm not sure exactly how some people do this, but you can sort of peel it off as you go along and undo the box, and then have the artwork available, and you can cut out what you want more easily. Or you can just print the cover in a smaller size and then paste it on top of the box. You have it that way. I am not that fancy in terms of printing things out. I'll choose something that I think looks nice and then cut that down. Let's dump everything out and fit this in here. You're going to make this as tight as you can. So ideally, make sure you got the right side. I'm going to mark this in here for where we should fold things up. Top is complete. You got the raccoon coming in from the side, some player count information, half of a logo, half of another logo. This side as well, this side folded down nicely, and then this one tore, similar to how the bottom one as well, the long side folded nicely, the short side tore, so perhaps it's just nature of the weave and the paper and how it works out. It fits together nicely, very tightly, in fact too tightly. Perhaps I should have done it just a slight bit looser, because I have to get it apart by prying it a little. Or maybe I need to put a little finger tuck on the side here. We'll put aside the question of a finger tuck for the moment. Put the cards inside, all the components. Rules are a little unruly at the moment, so perhaps we can tighten those folds a little by making them a bit sharper. There you go. A compact box that is less than 1/4 the size it was before. And here we are, another box cut down to size, courtesy of 5 tools that you probably have around the house: a utility knife, straight edge, a pen, tape, and a cutting board. This cutting board had been retired from the kitchen because it was old. It started peeling apart, such as the nature of plastic things over time. So not good for food, but perfectly good for craft purposes like this one. I will note this was a review copy of Berried Treasure from Restoration Games. Some people have noted in the past that I get games for free for review purposes, so naturally I might be more willing than people who spent money to cut up a game, because it doesn't cost me anything. Well, it costs time, and I've cut up plenty of games in the past that I have purchased because I want them in a smaller size than what the publisher delivered them in. You have the freedom to do that once you have a game in your possession. I don't plan to get rid of it. I want to play it again, but I don't want it to take up as much space. So here we are, now with a much more compact size. If you want to do this with your own games, cool. Maybe this video has some tips. We'll just show you, inspire you to do something like this. If you don't want to do this, fine, your call. You get to do what you wish based on whatever you want to keep or don't keep, whatever you have and don't have, whatever you want to do and don't do. So it's your game. You want to make it how you want it.